Welcome everyone to today's event, How to Turn Account Openers into Deep Relationships That Last. I'm joined by Jamie Cortes, who's the Marketing Research Analyst for Clinton Savings Bank, Craig Boivin, who's the Vice President of Marketing at UMassFive College Federal Credit Union, Adam Westley, our very own Senior Vice President of Strategic Partnerships, and I'm Laurie McLachlan, Chief Marketing Officer at Digital Onboarding. So today we're going to talk about a topic that's on everyone's minds, which is how to capture and retain more deposits, and then how to deepen those relationships from a distance digitally. We know that a lot of institutions have moved to a universal banker model, and so we're going to talk about ways that we can help them succeed. We're also going to show you how you can see the gaps in product and service ownership in terms of what customers and members have today and what they still need to adopt, how your performance stacks up to other institutions, and we're going to answer all of your questions at the end. There's a Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and if you post your question there, we'll be sure to address it. And now I'm going to hand things over to Adam.
Great, thanks Laurie, and thanks everybody for joining today. So one of the things we want to talk about first is this concept of a paycheck motel. So Ron Shevlin coined this term, I think a few months back, maybe 3 or 4 months back. It really refers to the fact that what's happening in the industry is lots of people are using direct deposit, roughly 80%. But so many of those people are just sort of staging that deposit there to move it to other financial accounts, typically at other financial institutions. And it's showing that trend being about 30% of those deposits are actually getting moved, and roughly 40% of all the funds. Now, what's even more alarming is in the under 40 demographic, that number is even higher. It's closer to 40% of those consumers are moving into another financial institution. So this is a trend we really need to pay attention to as an industry, and something that's quite alarming.
Yeah, and Adam, there's kind of two things going on there. Number one, think about yourself. For me, I direct deposit my money into my big bank account, and then I immediately transfer it to pay my Amex bill. Is Amex my PFI or is my bank? The second trend that's going on is, people are chasing rates. And so hot money is also causing people to move. And so it's those two trends here that we're addressing.
Yeah, and to your point, Larry, I mean, Ron sort of points that out, right? Like, what are they chasing, right? Are they chasing features? Are they chasing that high interest rate? Maybe it's that rewards credit card, as you mentioned, and that sort of rings true for me. I mean, I definitely use my rewards credit card as sort of my primary transaction device and move money from that account to pay that on a monthly basis. So definitely not, your traditional circumstance like you'd see with other individuals. And so, what's happening, right? Are these people cheating on you? Are they, sort of utilizing these other type of accounts? That's definitely one part of the dynamic. The other part of the dynamic is like, where are the accounts, the new accounts that are getting opened actually going to? And this stat was pretty interesting, pretty concerning actually as well, that roughly 50% of all the accounts that are getting opened at a digital bank or a fintech. Now, some of that obviously is attributable to the fact that they're, new financial institutions are sort of growing their footprint and base, but there's definitely, a trend there that we need to pay attention to as an industry. So, one of the things that we were looking at here is, how do we sort of stem this tide and assist? Now, one of the things that these financial institutions are doing is they're spending a lot on marketing. Chime alone spent 80 million in the last year. And so that's roughly the equivalent of a top 5 financial institution in the US, right? So if you look at it based on asset size, that'd be roughly what an $80 billion or $800 billion bank would spend, is $80 million in marketing. So a pretty alarming number that's happening there. And obviously we can't help you, 10x your marketing budget, but we can help you with some of the other components here, which is some of what we're going to talk about. So,
yeah, Adam, good point. You can grow by bringing more accounts in the front door, or by shutting the back door, right? There's a lot of accounts that are getting open that aren't getting used, and people are leaving.
Yeah. And so, what's happening with that back door, as Laurie sort of pointed out, right? Like, well, part of the issue that that's being shown here is we've spent a lot of money and a lot of effort and a lot of work trying to simplify that account opening process, remove all that friction from there, but kind of forgot about that period of time that happens afterwards, right? Like opening an account's great, but actually getting utilization out of the account is really what the goal is. And so why do so many people spend the time, effort to go and open an account, but then not actually use that account? And so when you look at the data and you interview individuals and you start understanding this, it's really that first 90 days is really, really hard. And it shows because 25 to 40% of these people are just, as Laurie mentioned, just walking right out the back door. It's kind of the leaky bucket concept, right? You're filling up the top with new accounts, and at the bottom, it's just all kind of flowing out the back end because people are leaving within that first year. And it's really just because that's such a difficult process, and we'll talk about some of those areas today. The other thing is it's hard to recover from that, right? So when you have a bad first impression when that individual comes in and it's difficult to do these really simple tasks that are setting up the account, how likely are they to actually come to you for that next product or service? Probably not very likely, right? Because it's looking like it's going to be hard to work with you. You're not providing them with tools and services that are making their life easy.
Yeah, and Adam, you talk about it being difficult to recover. This is really a psychology problem. It's not necessarily a process problem, although there are plenty of those. When you think about first impressions sticking, I think everyone's so sick of that saying that it doesn't mean anything anymore. But think about the last time you tried a restaurant for the first time and had a terrible experience. Are you going to go back again? And right? But think about if you went and had a great experience and you went back again and something wasn't right, you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt because the first time you met them, you got off on the right foot. It's really important. And Craig and I talked a lot about the psychology of opening and switching a checking account and what's required to get someone to move. Craig, I really wanted you to talk about, your retail team and what they're trying to do and, what this psychology problem is really like.
Yeah, I think the restaurant point is a good comparison, but I think it's even more important in the financial institution space, right? You're moving someone's kind of livelihood over to your institution, and the way that you're sort of holding their hand and reinforcing your brand and your messaging and showing if you're easy to do business or not. I really think that first, touch point, first several touch points is critical. And I think our retail team, especially, we have universal agent models, right? They're expected to do a lot of different things with members. And if you think about all the different items that we're asking of someone when they're opening up a checking account, and Adam mentioned like to actually activate an account, right? Moving over direct deposit, getting their card activated on our side, enrolling in e-statements, direct deposit, et cetera. There's a laundry list of things, and you got to make it simple. If you don't, I agree. I may not visit that restaurant again. I may not stick around with your financial institution for a long time.
Yeah, obviously we agree with you. It's wonderful if you folks on the line have a simple 5-minute online application, but if you then dump them into a maze where they get lost, it's not a great handoff.
For sure. And so, this is a problem we're solving though, right? Like when we look at it from that perspective, when you solve this problem, it really is the underpinning to all the other strategies you're running, right? So if you look at this graph, we're talking about engaged customers, right? So what does it mean to be a fully engaged customer or member of a financial institution? Well, it means that they're utilizing your debit or your digital tools, they're utilizing their debit card, they've got automatic payments set up, right? So they're engaged with their brand on a regular basis. And so if you look at this chart, you're looking at like deposit gathering, obviously a super hot topic with that savings account, and then all these sort of profitable elements that sit along our business, right? Most of us as a financial institution are going to make our money off the spread and the margin that we're getting. So we're collecting really low cost deposits with that savings account, and then obviously lending it out through those other vehicles that you see along the right-hand side. So significant increases when you can get that engagement. So it's super important that we do that. Cool. And so the main issue, right, is that friction, right? When we talk about it, it's not that these people are opening these accounts for fun and then they just leave them and abandon them. It's just that it's so hard to make these moves, right? And when you survey people and you look at the data associated with this, they're really trying to move that primary checking relationship, that primary deposit account relationship, but they just have a hard time doing so. And some of those things like direct deposit, like we talked about, but even simple things like getting access to digital banking tools can be tricky, especially when you're opening these accounts online. You don't have access to the key information you need, like maybe a member number, or you don't have the account number associated with that thing because it flashed on the screen and you didn't bother to write it down. So these components become really, really important as we go.
Great. And I did want to ask Craig about this, because I know we talked about digital account openers, and this problem can feel even more pronounced for them, right? They're not near a branch, they're not near a rep. What are your feelings on the matter when it comes to digital?
Yeah, I think it's just really important to think through how you are, kind of ushering someone along in that journey when they're first opening up the account and asking for activation, right? When you're in the branch or you're opening over the phone, you have that personal connection, that person that you can kind of call. And we've experienced a lot of growth in our online channel. We're opening up 70% of our new applications are coming in online. And, we don't have a person that's emailing that person back and forth, telling them of all the benefits and all the things we're asking them to do. So making sure we have a process that's automated and really that easy to do business moniker. I mean, that's one of our strategic pillars now at UMassFive, is thinking about how can we knock down those points of friction and make it as easy as possible for someone to do banking with us.
That's one of the smartest things you can focus on, is just removing friction. And that makes a lot of sense. And it certainly doesn't make sense if somebody opens an account digitally to send them in the mail a paper welcome kit. That will be the equivalent of Netflix sending me an onboarding brochure. It's just bizarre. So there's a better way.
Yeah, and so to that point, right? I mean, like so many things as an industry, like our plan is, hey, we've created all these great digital tools. Now here's a packet of paper to tell you all about that service, right? And the other area that we really focused on is one that Craig brought up, which is that universal banker concept, right? So, utilizing these universal bankers to do so much is, obviously a trend that had to happen in the industry because we're consolidating and, removing some branches from the mix, but it's definitely not an easy role to fill. And with the amount of attrition that happens in that role, it's really hard to train and retain that talent. So we're asking these people to sell new products and services. We're asking these people to onboard new customers. We're asking these people to triage and answer questions when people have service issues. And it's a lot to ask of an individual. And especially when you train these people up over a 3 to 6 month period and then they walk out the back door, it makes it really hard to create a consistent element. And that's one of the things we can really help support with our platform. So.
Yeah, and I wanted to invite our panelists to chime in. Jamie, I know that you adopted a universal banker model. I was hoping you could kind of talk about that and, the onboarding experience and some of the challenges.
Sure. So we are a smaller community bank, and we try to do a lot of the hand holding, but don't always have the time to do a lot of the hand holding. So we kind of incorporated our old school phone calls and things like that with the new emails and journeys that Digital Onboarding offers. It's hard because you have your younger generation who's all into the digital and stuff, but still wants the customer service when they need it right away. And then we also have our older clientele who still feels a little more comfortable over the phone and in person. So it's kind of like marrying those two things together and having an option for everyone.
Yeah.
So we still do, we do the phone calls periodically, especially with checking accounts and things like that, brand new customers. Did you receive your checks, et cetera, et cetera. But then being able to follow that up with the email journey is great because, I'd say probably 50% of the people aren't answering the phone. Either they're busy or they don't recognize the number or they're afraid it's a spam call or being sold something. So it's great to be able to get them from both sides, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Craig, I know you're perhaps reevaluating your universal banker model. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, that is an ongoing discussion here. We're a medium-sized credit union, 650 million in assets. So we've had the universal banking model in place for a good 7-8 years at this point. And what we've really realized was the effort and training that we're putting in to get someone to know all the different nuances of the role that we're asking of them. When we really sat down and mapped it out, it's about a 9-month training program. And like Adam said, if you're training someone for 9 months and month 10, they leave and trying to do that cycle over and over, it's a negative impact on that retail team and the member experience. So, sort of trying to envision what that's going to look like in the future. I don't really know yet today, but it's really apparent to me, even when we rework it, right? There's only just so much time that member's going to sit down with us when they're first opening the account, right? Maybe an hour, maybe 90 minutes, and you're not going to get through every single thing that you want out of them to establish that active checking account. And so to me, the focus becomes, what are you doing afterwards to reach out? I agree with Jamie. I mean, we were doing outbound calls. No one was really answering the phones. So that was really kind of wasted resource. So, the digital piece has really become key for us, especially those online people too.
Fabulous. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, great. Really good feedback. So time for a poll question.
Yep, it's going to pop up in just a second and we'll share the answers. Does your bank or credit union have an objective to fully engage a greater percentage of new account openers? I'll just give you a minute or so to respond. It's always interesting for me to see, some FIs that are almost purely focused on just new acquisition versus engaging the accounts they have with organic growth. All right, we'll reveal those answers. And 59% or the majority said yes. Surprisingly, 28% said no. And 14% aren't sure yet, maybe because we're still in strategic planning season.
Great. And so we'll talk a little bit about our platform here in a second, but some of the areas where we really address the problem is really below the acquisition line, right? So much effort and time and money, as we pointed out earlier in this conversation, is spent in that top of the funnel area, account origination, acquisition marketing, those areas. But this is the area sort of below the waterline, if you will, where we spend most of our time, and we think it really does pay off with what's happening, and the data shows that, right? When you look at some of the results, and we'll talk about those case studies as we get a little bit farther in. But it's that welcome and activation we've been talking about so much, ensuring that you have a really good and consistent process of how that individual takes advantage of their product and service. It's transaction management, which is a really new area for us. So focusing on, when is that CD maturity date, and making sure you're getting in front of that and communicating to the individual so that they don't take those funds and just move it to another financial institution, or they don't just, have that CD roll over. Overdraft is another great element, which is providing like a service element to the customer base, of the member base, just making sure that they're aware that they've had an overdraft or they're about to have an overdraft. Those types of communications are really important. And then obviously your lending products, right? When you get to those specific milestones that you want to get to, or you want to make sure that you're in front of the customer, maybe it's an area of time where you typically see refinance activity around like the 18 to 24 month timeframe for an auto loan, or maybe it's, towards the end of that auto loan. Making sure you're getting in front of those types of communications is really, really important. Well, we won't talk much about it today, but financial education is obviously a hot topic these days, and providing that level of service and showing that you're an advocate for people is really, really important. So we want to make sure that we're doing those things as well. And then cross-sell, which we'll talk about really quickly with one of our case studies today. We've seen some really great results in that area. And obviously a lot of that is underpinned by that welcome and activation component, right? Because when you develop those good first impressions, those really good relationships, then those cross-sell efforts are so much more effective. So. Okay, so some of the use cases, we talked about some of these. Account utilization, maybe an area that we don't hear, we talk about obviously in that activation element, but there's also account utilization of if somebody's just not using the debit card or not using their credit card on a regular basis to transact. Like, are we reaching out to them and letting them know the benefits of using that type of a service and all the sort of advantages we have? System upgrades is another really great use case, which we've seen a lot of activity in recently. A lot of people are moving digital banking platforms, they're moving new mobile apps into the ecosystem, and those are really complicated transitions, not just for the members and the customer base, but also for the staff, right? And so making sure they're aware of the important dates and milestones, they're reminded of those different things. They're provided with appropriate training and things of that nature as well. And M&A is much similar to those system upgrades, right? Again, a very disruptive element that happens within the business, and just making sure that we're getting ahead of that. If you haven't seen it, we did a really great webinar on merger and acquisition communications previously, and it's on our website. It's got some really great content from some thought leaders that have gone through it in the recent years. So, okay, so we talk a lot about, like, all the flaws in what we do as an industry from an onboarding perspective. We're using a lot of paper, we're using that universal banker concept. So what's really different about digital onboarding? Well, typical onboarding campaigns that we see when we talk to financial institutions, they're just sort of drip email campaigns, right? They may be sending a series of emails. They're probably making some phone calls, much like Craig and Jamie talked about. They may be doing some additional outreach that's coming from the branches and things like that. But at the end of the day, no one's really providing them with any tools to get the job done. And that's really where most of these things fall over, is that we're telling the user, hey, let's make sure we set up direct deposit. Make sure you activate your debit card. Make sure you update all your payment methods, and let's get you access to the mobile app. But we're forgetting about all the points of friction that happen for the user. And they don't want to go through all that pain and effort. It's not really something they chose to do, right? They wanted to move their relationship over, and the easier you make that process, the more likely they are. So we'll talk about, and we'll show you some of these tools today within a customer journey for a new member checking activation. But Laurie, I think you had some comments about this one as well.
So Jamie, I know that your bank has, the marketing department has a goal of maximizing the number of services each customer holds. And one of those that you focus on is e-statements. And can you talk about how having tools can help you drive success?
Yeah, so it's kind of like that friction pain point. We can ask the customer, or tell the customer about e-statements and say, oh yeah, when you're in online banking, click on the link. And it's one of those things that when we're talking to them, they might be here and then they go home and they forget, that type of thing. So having that email sent and have it be part of the journey, it's really easy for them to just click and sign up, remove some of that friction and the timing situation. Are you free when they're free? Things like that. And e-statements is one of those things. It's generally super easy to sign up for. And when people get their paper statement in the mail, they're like, oh yeah, I need to sign up for e-statements. But then they go about their day and don't sign up for e-statements. So getting either that beginning opening account journey, reminding them to sign up, but then also the single objective journey where you can follow up periodically just to remind them that e-statements are there and make it easy for them to click and sign up.
Yeah, I was so happy to hear about the success with your recent e-statement campaign. And Craig, I wanted to bring you in quickly to talk about, I know in our conversations, one of the things that really appeals to you is how personalized this all is, and how it tracks what, say, Laurie has done versus what Craig has done. Do you want to talk about that for a minute and the value of it for you?
Yeah, sure thing. I think there's really like two things that it boils down to me that I think is really helpful with reducing that friction. And one, it is like that bite by piece part of digital onboarding, right? So you can bite off one piece of that activation if you want to. You can complete more than one if you want to as well. But I just think in the world of like analysis paralysis, making it really easy, completing one task at a time, maybe when I have a spare couple of minutes, is really helpful with the microsites. And then the other piece to me, which is really proving that we know that new individual who's now establishing their accounts with us. I love that we can use our data with the digital onboarding system, so that, if Craig has already enrolled in online banking, we're not going to ask him to enroll in online banking as part of that journey, right? That's showing me that you really know, what I've signed up for already. And I think that's a great first impression, to get back to our earlier conversation.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, and Craig, you brought up a really good point, right? I mentioned drip campaigns, and that's typically what falls over in a lot of those. Is like you're getting a consistent message over and over and over again, regardless of what you've actually accomplished, right? Whereas our platforms sitting on enough data and intelligent enough to know that like, well, if I've already set up direct deposit, it's going to be really annoying to be reminded over and over and over again to set up direct deposit. I should be reminded about the next step I need to take in that journey. So it's a really, really critical area. So, all right, let's get into a demonstration of the platform. So, awesome. All right, so what we're going to start off today, the sort of story we're going to go through is individual Adam who's just opened a brand new checking account at my financial institution and how that will work. So typically what we would do is we'd reach out to that individual through any means we have, right? So if we've got access to their email and text messages, we highly recommend our customers use both. We've seen really good use cases for text messaging, especially when you talk about indirect lending. That's been a really powerful vehicle to drive that actual activity and make sure that the member engages or the customer engages. So, but we'll take you through the email element today. So when users select to get started on that email message, they're going to be taken to their personalized microsite. So a couple things about the microsite itself. It is completely customizable and unique to that individual. So it is addressed to me, but also some of the things like Craig pointed out, like if I've already completed some of these tasks, say I've been with the financial institution, I've already opened multiple accounts, I may already have access to online banking and mobile banking, so I don't need those steps. So I may see a journey here with only 5 steps, whereas, if Laurie opened a brand new account and it was, her first relationship, she's going to see all 7. So we dynamically can change these journeys depending on where you are within your relationship with the financial institution. Everything on here is customizable from, the URL that we're going to be using, logos, colors, fonts, really, really simple user interface to make those edits and corrections. Within the platform, we'd like to include all, sort of pertinent information down here at the bottom. We'll also include a progress wheel, which we can use as an element to show progress within the actual step. It gamifies the journey as well. That can change to a monetary element as well. But I think we've got some really cool use cases from both of our panelists about that progress wheel. Laurie, do you want to talk about that?
Well, I wanted to first ask Jamie, so a lot of institutions on the phone may be offering rewards checking accounts, right? Or rewards savings accounts. Or they might be doing the opposite. They might be penalizing people if they don't adopt all the services. So I know that you offer a rewards product or rewards checking account. And, I guess talk to me about the importance of being able to let people know how far they are along in achieving those benefits.
Sure. Yeah, it makes it very visual for them. So, they might choose that because, oh, we're going to get the high interest rate or we're going to get the, ATM fee refunds. But if they don't have all of the things they need to satisfy the requirements and qualify, then they're not going to get that higher interest rate. So then, it's kind of like one of those, do they then go and leave and go somewhere else because they're not getting the higher interest rate? But with in this case, it's more visual. So they can see, okay, I don't have e-statements or I don't have my debit card activated. So it kind of leads them through those steps to get them to the point where, hey, you will receive the interest or you will receive the ATM fee refunds.
Great. And then I just wanted to pipe in to answer a question that Kristen asked in the chat, which is whether you're able to customize what the incentive shows. The answer is yes. You absolutely can, and we can show you how if you want to meet with us separately.
Great. So we're going to start heading through this journey and we'll stop at different points to talk about some different elements. One thing I forgot to mention sort of there at the outset is, the list of tasks we're going to ask this individual sort of sit along this top bar that we can move them along the screen. But this is one of our normal navigations you'll see. So you see these steps and we'll sort of walk through them. The other thing I'll point out is a lot of times we'll incorporate a chat function within our journeys. This is, lots of different chat functions out there that our clients use, and we'll embed those there because, again, it's great when you have this digital tool that's going to sort of walk them through, but when they get stuck, knowing that they can reach out and get that support is a really important element of providing that good service. So we do encourage people to use their chat function within our journeys if they do have one. So the first step we've got here is we're going to get signed up for text messaging. A lot of the institutions we work with have text messaging alerts, overdraft or, low balances, things of that nature. But a lot of them aren't using it for marketing yet. When we talk to them, we highly, highly encourage they use this step anyways, even if you're not ready to start text messaging. If you remember years ago when email became the predominant channel, how many customers or members we just didn't have authorization to send emails or valid email addresses on, and how much pain we went through to kind of get those. It's really important to just get that consent up front. And so we can assist with that here really easily. We'll send a text message to their phone. It'll ask them to click a link to verify that they have ownership of it. And we record all those actions within our platform and can feed those back to downstream systems as well. So it gets that consent. And again, we highly encourage utilizing text messaging for your journeys, and especially specific ones where we've seen really, really good results utilizing text messages over emails. So the next step in this specific journey is to get set up for direct deposit. So we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about a couple different ways. Really, as an industry, we don't care how people set up direct deposit. It is a really important part of primacy. Obviously, we talked a little bit earlier in this presentation how you've got to monitor that pretty closely because you're not really sure, are they actually utilizing the account? Thus, we have a lot more steps here than direct deposit in order to show that we've got this person fully engaged with our institution. But we do want to make sure that we're getting that paycheck in, because typically where that paycheck is going is one of the places they're going to be transacting. And so if we can get that paycheck, we've got a really good leg up on our competition. So we'll show you a couple different ways. The first way is through our personalization. So, when you want to set up direct deposit at your employer, you have a lot of different options. Maybe there's a form you can fill out and hand to HR. Maybe it's a portal you can log into. But in order to do that, you're going to need some key information. You're going to need the account type, which you probably know. You opened a checking account. You're going to need the address of the financial institution. You're going to need the routing number, but you're going to need that account number. And this is typically the first point of friction you run into. Account number is needed in a lot of different areas. We'll need it again and get access to online banking or mobile banking, but we want to be able to securely reveal that to the individual. This is one of the huge advantages we have over one of those email campaigns or something like that, because you can't obviously provide an account number within that sort of a channel or vehicle, but here we can secure this journey. So what we'll do is we'll say we want to click to reveal. We'll ask to send a code. That code will go over into my email. And when I grab that code from here and put it into this right here and hit submit, I will then have access to the account number. Now, this is secure the journey across all those different elements here. So when we go to online banking, you'll notice that account number is shown again, because like I mentioned, you're going to need that account number to get access to online banking. So we can provide that secure information throughout the journey once we've done this authorization. So that's sort of step one, what the customer can do. We could also provide a form. If you have a form from your website and want to just include a PDF here that they could download and utilize as a form that they could send in, we can do that as well. The other really critical way we can do it is we can just help them move their direct deposit. So through this little direct deposit widget, we're able to work with the individual to say, do you know who your payroll provider is? Which lots of people know, right? Because it's common names in the market: ADP, Workday, Paycom, Paychex. These are people that a lot of people know. You've got different employers that you can look through. If they work in the gig economy, you got access to a lot of those. But for this purpose, I'm just going to select Home Depot. So I'm going to put in my username here. And then I'll put in that blank and skip it. So in this case, it's going to give me a couple options, right? So I've got the option of moving the entire amount of the check, a specific amount. Every one of the different platforms is a little bit different. Oftentimes you'll see all three. So you'll see entire amount, specific amount, of percentage. In this case, they only allow you to do a specific amount or the entire amount. So I'll say the entire amount. I'll hit confirm. And at this point, we're going to do everything for the user, right? So we're going to make sure that we update, what is the routing number, what type of account, that address. We'll update that with the account or the routing number and account number information right into the back end of the system. We'll additionally send them an email to let them know that it was completed and give them the option to move additional payroll. This is really, really important, especially in the gig economy. Most people don't work for just one gig economy provider, right? They're working for Lyft as well as Uber, maybe Uber Eats and DoorDash, right? So they've got multiple paychecks that are coming in. So providing them with that service is really important. They can obviously go through it here as well, a subsequent time, but getting that email is a great reminder. So Laurie, I think you had some stuff you wanted to talk about on the direct deposit side.
I know, Craig, this is one of the features that attracted your institution to the platform. Why is that?
Yeah, well, I think, when Adam mentioned kind of like those automated sequences that we were sending out like before digital onboarding, it didn't have any tool like this that actually allowed someone to aggregate that information. And we are sensitive that there are plenty of folks out there who do work, multiple jobs, especially in that gig economy. And to, again, just bring it all into one system. Now I don't have to log in or at least go out to all these different places to put my information in, to move over my payroll. It's just another friction point reduction is really why I liked it.
Yeah, I love that you're laser focused on being the easiest place to do business. I think it's a smart strategy.
Better for worse, right? Where the consumer's expectation is measured against all the other businesses that they work with, and you think about how easy the likes of Amazon, et cetera, is. That's what our members expect, and that's what we're trying to deliver on.
Fabulous.
Great. So now that we've got funds coming into the account, one of the things we want to make sure we're doing now is getting that interchange revenue, right? So many people now are using Amazon to purchase things online, like we talked about. You shop for plane tickets and hotels using online accounts. You're using services like Uber, or you have subscription services like Netflix and Hulu. And so we want to capture that revenue, right? That's a huge opportunity as a financial institution. It also is a big underpinning of that, engagement of a relationship, right? If they're utilizing that account to transact, that's a key indicator that it works. So what we'll do here is we'll give them the ability to select a couple different services. So for this purposes, I'm just going to select, say, Amazon, and well, let's just use Dunkin' Donuts and hit continue. So what we'll ask the user to do is enter their card detail one time. When they put that information in and hit continue, we're then going to ask them to put in their username and credentials for each one of these services. When they do that, much like that direct deposit widget, we're going to do those updates automatically for the user. So we're going to make sure that that card that you issued goes top of wallet. Couple common questions we get here is, how do I prevent them from utilizing their Bank of America credit card to update when I'm providing them with this service? We do control that first screen by BIN. So if you provide us with your BINs, we'll make sure that they can't issue another one or use a different credit card from another financial institution to put in there. The other thing that we see this pretty commonly is used in one-off use cases like Prime Day or Black Friday. We've seen one of our customers, Deseret, which we'll talk about later in this presentation, have some really good opportunities, or really good, I guess, results coming from them running a campaign specifically around just trying to get more debit card activation out of their user base. And they saw some really great results there. So. All right, so now that we've got funds coming into the account, we got them transacting, let's make sure that they get access to those digital tools. So I mentioned before, we want to talk about all the services here, but they're going to need that account number again. We can provide it there. This is just going to take them to that enrollment page and let them go through that enrollment process. So really, really critical step here for them to get that access. We'll also want to make sure that they get access to the mobile app, right? And one of the things I always point out here is when we get into the mobile app space is, despite the fact that these mobile app stores are run by Apple and Google, if you search for a lot of financial institutions, which we do have to on a regular basis when we do customized demos, it's really hard to find the apps. And sometimes the institution has multiple apps. So it's confusing as a user to find the right place to go and to get access. So the other thing I notice is a lot of times on the website, they'll have the link to, here's the iOS store, here's the Google Play Store and how to get access to this application. The issue is I'm on my desktop and I don't really want it there, right? I want it on my cell phone. So what we provide is if they were on a cell phone, we just have a large install now button. We'd identify that device and change the user interface here. But since I'm on my desktop, what I want to do is get it to my phone. So I can enter my mobile phone number and I can send myself a link, or I can just scan this QR code and the application is smart enough to send me to the correct app store. So if I'm on an Android device, it will send me to Google Play. If I'm on an iOS device, it'll send me to the Apple Store. So again, just removing friction from the process. So a couple of comments here, Laurie, from your side.
Yeah, I know, Jamie, you've seen some good success so far with mobile app adoption. Is that right?
Yes, we have seen our mobile app adoption increase, recently. I think it just makes it so easy for the user. And it's no extra work for us too, which is nice. So we've seen that increase just by setting it up in the journey. It's kind of like a set it and forget it type of thing. And we just, see the adoption rate, it has definitely increased.
Awesome.
Great. So we've talked a little bit. I know, Jamie, you've mentioned e-statements a couple of times in this conversation. Still, as an industry, we kind of struggle with this. Typically, from my experience, it's inside digital banking is the core place where most people go to update e-statement preferences, but it's usually buried under a whole bunch of menus where you got to sort of navigate your way and figure your way down there. So we really try and make it easy on the user, right? So we can direct them to digital banking and ask them to go through that process. If the digital banking platform supports it, we can deep link it to that directly to that sort of workflow if it's possible. But the other way we can do it is just right in the platform. Let's get consent. So in this case, we're using our enrollment widget. We'll talk in the case studies actually about another use case for this enrollment widget, which is really, really cool that one of our clients developed. But in this case, we're going to use it for e-statements. So we're asking the individual to provide a yes and their first and last name. But if you notice, I'm not able to hit submit at this point. And that's because I haven't viewed the terms and conditions. So at this point, if I click, I'll get those terms and conditions, review those. Now you'll see that step complete and I'm able to submit it. Yeah, we'll track this on our end and we can provide this feedback to downstream systems so that you keep everything in sync. And we have a good data governance around making sure that we collect all those enrollment elements, sorry.
Yeah, Adam, I do want to pipe in here because this is one of my favorite widgets, the enrollment widget. We're showing it being used for e-statements, but let me be clear. This can be used for any service or any pre-approved offer without ever making somebody log in somewhere or fill out an application, okay? If my bank sent me something and all I needed to do was e-sign to get e-statements, I would have done it years ago. Pre-approved credit offers, courtesy pay, you name it. Removing that friction that Craig has been harping on is the key to success.
Yeah, for sure. And so the last element in this one is to do a quick survey. So, we can select, are you interested in any of the products or services? So we'll just say auto loans and how is the process and submit. Now we'll track those results on our side, which is great. One thing I want to mention about, asking about other financial needs is that within our platform, you can actually target an individual based on how they answered that campaign. So you could have a campaign already set up associated with auto loans, home loans, maybe investments, other different elements that you might ask about, and we can automatically trigger that journey right behind there and send them that information immediately. So really powerful tool here. Obviously, we sit on a lot of data as an industry and we can make inferences as to what we think is the next best product, but what better way than just asking the individual. So Laurie, some comments on the survey side.
Yeah, so I almost wish it was, it's more than just a survey. So if you think about the conversations that your universal bankers might be having with someone in a branch, right? A lot of the questions they're asking, yes, they're trying to gauge satisfaction, but they're also trying to qualify them, understand their situation, uncover needs, right? So that they're not making generic offers. Now you can do that from a distance, right? You can fire up surveys that ask people about their financial goals and immediately retarget them with offers that are relevant instead of spraying and praying your entire base. Jamie, I know that you're using this feature. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. We have it embedded like this one at the end of our, microsite journey, on most of our, or on quite a few of our journeys. So was this experience easy, or was the however we word it, basically asking, if the account opening went well, if this, onboarding piece went well. And then we also send a separate survey. We actually just instituted it, just turned it on like a week or two ago. So we're sending it about 60 days after account opening. And the questions, are, how's your experience been, to date? So that might be during account opening, if they've talked to someone since then, et cetera, et cetera. So general survey questions, do you feel our online banking and mobile banking are customer friendly? But then we also ask about the financial goals, like what are your financial goals this year or next year? And we have different choices in there, and they can select, and then, like you guys had said, the new feature to be able to retarget on that. So if they say, my one of our financial goals next month is to, save up for a home repair or home remodel or something like that, then we can have a journey set up targeted on our response. So if you click that, then you'll automatically get, our HELOC promo or special, or an educational article about HELOCs and why, they're better than credit, why they can be used instead of credit cards, and the pros and cons and that type of thing. So targeted for education purposes and for marketing purposes. Again, like kind of that personalized content that you want to give. You can.
Yeah, and I mean, targeting and personalization is just another way to make things easy for people, right? Not telling them superfluous information or about offers that don't apply. And Craig, I know that personalization and targeting is a big theme for you also, and a reason you chose the platform. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it just gets back to showing the member that you know them, right? So one of the things that we've done is we have separate checking activation campaigns per product that we have here, right? So if you're going for that rewards checking and you do need to enroll in e-statements in order to get the higher dividend rate, that's worked into the messaging of our e-statements landing page. So it's really nice to be relevant in that way. And then the other piece too, which we haven't talked about yet, I'm a big fan of the retargeting component of the system too, and being able to follow up. Maybe someone did skip the e-statements section for whatever reason. They called it up and got busy and got distracted, to be able to follow up with them once the campaign's completed, and try to get them sort of over that threshold again. Allowing multiple touch points has been, we've seen some success from that.
Yeah, I think to your point earlier about people getting distracted, you're so smart for not giving up. We had a customer recently that went out to people that had never, weren't using digital banking. And a lot of FIs think, oh, they'll never use it. Well, guess what? By targeting and retargeting, they got a heck of a lot of them to adopt. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, great points. And so we've made it to 100% of this journey. You see the progress wheel complete up here at the top. A couple of things that were mentioned sort of in that conversation I just want to reiterate is, obviously this was the happy path. I sat down, I finished this whole entire journey in one sitting. Nobody interrupted me. That's sometimes going to be unlikely for an individual. Things happen, life happens. So the system does follow up on a regular basis to make sure wherever they are in the journey, to remind them to take that step, right? Both emails and text messages. You can also do that within digital banking environments to remind them within there, and allow them to take those actions within digital banking as well, which is a great part of the feature. Craig also mentioned the retargeting function, which I do want to point out, is that if a user finishes, say, 50% of this journey, we can have subsequent journeys behind this that will remind them about those individual steps, because they know they've timed out of this specific journey that they were in, right? So it's an important component to make sure that you're continually reminding somebody of the different actions you want them to take. You can't just assume that they didn't take the action because they didn't want to. There's a lot of reasons they could have not been able to take that action at that given time. So reminding them is really, really important. So, all right, let's go back into our presentation here. And
Great.
Laurie, you wanted to cover some stuff on analytics. So
Yeah, I'm going to cover this really quickly because I don't want to run out of time. We got 10 minutes left and we have a ton of case study stories that we just want to whip through so you can see what kind of results people are achieving. In a nutshell, this platform is built for financial institutions. It's not used by retailers. It's not used by bus drivers. It's built for banks and credit unions. Why does that matter? It matters because you want to understand the relationships that you have, right? You want to track your metrics, which are very different than other businesses. So in our system, not only can you see the normal marketing metrics like email open rates, click-through rates, things like that, you can see the metrics that actually matter to your business and to your C-suite. You can benchmark your performance against 120 other institutions using the platform. You can see if you're performing better or worse than they are on direct deposit adoption, cross-sell, you name it. You can see for your own customer or member base, who has direct deposit, who doesn't, who has e-statements, who doesn't. That's going to give you really good insight into how to target your campaigns. And Craig, I know that you found a lot of opportunities this way. Is that right?
Yeah, it's been really great to leverage digital onboarding to help just get a little bit more granular into our data and be smarter about how we're using it. So, one of the insights we've seen is we do an excellent job of getting people to enroll in online banking, whether it be in person if they're in the branch or through the checking activation journey that we set up. So, that's not broken. We can kind of leave it alone, but we realize that e-statements, we have some room to push that percentage up, and same thing on the direct deposit side. And that's what led us to think through like, well, okay, those are great candidates for the retargeting campaign. So it's been nice to use the data to sort of inform how we're leveraging the system.
Fabulous. Yeah, we understand a lot of your data might be locked up in an old core system or in 10 systems. And so we do what we can to give you the data to help you make decisions easily. You can also calculate your value contribution. So if I got 5,000 people to set up recurring card payments, what is that delivering to my bottom line? You can see that right in the system. And now I'm going to move on just so we can get into some of the rest of this.
Great. So just a sampling of some of our customers. They range in size from really, really small financial institutions to very, very large financial institutions. Just sort of demonstrates this problem kind of exists throughout the market for almost all the individuals we talk to. So great. We're going to jump into some of these case studies. So I'll try and breeze through them relatively quickly. I know there's some comments on them as well, but this SCE one is one we mentioned a little bit earlier, kind of as we were going through it. This is the use of that enrollment widget. What the SCE did was they sent out a mailer to try and acquire new members, looking for a credit card that was pre-approved. It put a QR code on there, drove them to a personalized microsite. That personalized microsite allowed them to accept terms and conditions, say they wanted to accept that offer. Great opportunity for them to acquire new members. Compared to a previous campaign they'd run, they got 33% more members than they did previously. So such a huge win for them. Leader Bank, this was a really cool one, sort of a unique use case. Leader has a lot of escrow clients. They receive a lot of call volume at the end of the year with questions around like, well, I don't understand, why is my escrow underwater? Like, how can I true this up? What are my options? So on and so forth. Typical things that you're going to hear in an escrow conversation. They were able to send out these personalized journeys that showed what the shortages were going to be, the different options the individual had, how that was going to affect their payments, give that to them in real terms using that personalization. And when they did so, they got 47% fewer calls into their call center compared to the year previous. So huge win for them, obviously massive cost savings associated with that and a much, much better customer experience. Deseret, I talked about this one a little bit when we were talking about the card on file function. So this was them sending out a journey to individuals, really trying to get them to utilize those debit cards, right? They offered some really good incentives around it to say, hey, if you update up to 5 or more merchants, we'll give you a $100 bonus. And they saw a massive increase in debit card spending, 40% increase just by utilizing this one journey. So really cool use case there as well. OCCU, this is an indirect lending use case where they really wanted users to adopt e-statements, and it was a really important part of their strategy. There was some incentives, or there was some penalties associated with not doing e-statements. And so what was happening was they were getting a lot of calls into their call center if people weren't adopting e-statements, sort of upset. Not a great way to start the relationship. They utilized our platform to really communicate the importance of signing up for e-statements and utilizing that enrollment widget to gather those things, and they got a much higher adoption percentage by doing that. So really great win for them. Harborstone, this is, Laurie mentioned this earlier, talking about just getting better adoption of those individual services. So in this case, indirect auto loan members, really trying to make sure they're using the digital tools. I think oftentimes in industry, we sort of assume, well, it's a single product relationship, they're just not going to use the digital tools, but they saw really good increases in those digital banking adoptions by utilizing this. They also saw some cross-sell here, which is a really important part of that channel, right? If we're doing indirect auto lending, we're really trying to grab those primary relationships. So being able to get opened brand new checking account relationships is a really huge win for Harborstone. TrueStone. So this is actually the other one that Laurie was talking about there briefly about, this idea that, like, hey, if somebody doesn't utilize digital banking tools, they're just never going to utilize digital banking tools. So they actually came up with a goal that they wanted to add 5,000 members within the year to utilize their digital banking tools, 5,000 additional members to use their digital banking tools. And so they ran this campaign for 30 days. And they got 1,425 users to convert and start utilizing their digital banking tools. So massive win there. Obviously, that reduces the cost of service and means that they're much more engaged with the financial institution that they were before. And again, with a segment that they probably would have forgotten had they not had the access to look at the data that way. So. The last one we'll talk about is TrueStone. This is Certified. This is a really cool use case for cross-sell. They were using this to do pre-qualified credit card offers. What's unique about this one is they had run side-by-side campaigns, right? So they took a population and ran with a traditional campaign, and then ran a campaign with direct mail, but pushing it to our microsites and offering them some of the services and capabilities that we have there. And they got double the cross-sell rate by utilizing that component. So just demonstrates that there's a lot of power in these things, well beyond some of the use cases we've talked about today. So. All right, we've got time for one more poll question, and then I think maybe some Q&A.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so if you're interested in a custom demo, we can show you a lot more features that we didn't get time to show, and we'll create a branded campaign for your institution. So if you're interested in that, just check off the yes option or one of the others, and we'll circle back and get in touch with you. We're just going to leave this up for about a few more seconds. Great. And I just wanted to ask Jamie and Craig very briefly to just talk about your experience working with our team, because we've talked a lot about the platform today. But this is not a case where you buy a piece of software and you're left on your own to operate it. We've got a whole team that's here to suggest winning campaigns and help you. And I just want to know if that's happening and what your experience has been, Jamie.
It's definitely happening. I have to say the team that we have is amazing. When we first started, we did weekly calls. So they would teach us how to use the system ourselves, but then also help us with different needs. They already have campaign templates set up, so then we could just modify them for our use. Shannon, she's our rep with the calls. She's amazing. Everyone's been very responsive. If it's something that, she needs a little tech support with, they're very quick as well. We're just really impressed. And we started, like I said, with weekly calls and then went to bi-weekly calls. And now we're about once a month now that we're more familiar with the system. But I'll email in like random questions if I'm creating a new journey, not near our phone call. And I have to say, I'm amazed at the customer service level. It's been great.
Great. What about you, Craig? What's it been like?
Yeah, very similar experience. I mean, it's really nice to have that go-to person on digital onboarding that you can ask all those questions to. And if they need to pull in technical, they'll do that. And technical has been great as well, especially with setting up our initial kind of targeting and thinking through all the complications of wanting to make it really customizable, which we took full advantage of. And even just talking out strategic items, making sure that we're aligned with our strategic plan and how the system's sort of best being used to support that.
Fabulous. Well, if you are interested and you didn't fill out that questionnaire, just reach out to us at sales@digitalonboarding.com. Most customers go live in about 4 to 6 weeks, so you can start making an impact really quickly. Thanks for coming. You'll receive an email tomorrow with the recording and slide deck of today's presentation. Have an awesome day, everyone. Thank you so much, Jamie and Craig and Adam.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks.